go live now.
Yes, sir, we are live.
Start? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sir, should we start?
Yeah. Yes, you can go ahead.
A very good morning, everyone. So, we are in the panel discussion right now. Today, I would like to request Professor Ajit Patil, sir, the student branch counselor of CSI, to give us a brief introduction.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone, and warm welcome from KIT's College of Engineering, Kolhapur. We are here for the CSI Regional Students Convention 2020, and we have joined with Mr. Prakash Kazve, who is a principal special trainer at Tech Mahindra. So he is having a very wide experience in the field of IT as well as in education. We have joined with Mr. Jagonda Patil, who is working in Intel Bangalore. We have joined with Mr. Sagar Patil, who is alumni of KIT and who is also a founder of SSL Gen and currently working in Pune. We have with us Mr. Murlidhar Parulekar, who is working as a project lead at Wipro and who is currently working in Texas, US. We have joined with Head of Department, Dr. M.S. Kalish ma'am. Then we have coordinator of this particular activity, Mrs. A.S. Sawant madam. Then we have with us Mrs. Ranjita Pandre, who is coordinating this entire CSI activity along with our student volunteers. Let me brief you about the CSI. Actually, the Computer Society of India student branch, it has been started in KIT in the year 2014. And every year we are organizing number of different events for the betterment of the students community. We are organizing events like project competitions. We are organizing different events under the umbrella of Ibilianza, where we are organizing the programming competition. We organize events like Cliptivity, which is video filmmaking competitions. We are organizing the events like paper presentation and so on. We also organize events like project competitions where we call the different projects from the students community and the students will showcase their projects in front of all. So CSI, it's one of the most active branch, or we can say chapter in KIT. The CSI branch has brought the different laurels to the institute. We got the different awards from Computer Society of India, such as Best College Award, Best Principal Award, then Best HOD Award, as well as Best Student Activist Award since 2014. So today for the panel discussion, we have a theme that is future trends in IT after COVID-19. Because as we are aware that since March 2019, we are going through one of the unprecedented situation because of this COVID-19. And this COVID-19 has impacted our day-to-day life. That entire world went into the lockdown for a couple of months. Again, that lockdown lifted, and again, it is spreading like anything in Europe, and it has impacted all the aspects of our life. So, what actually the today's theme? What are the future trends in IT? How the COVID-19 has impacted the IT sector, and what are the different opportunities that has been created for the students community. So that is the theme that we have taken it for the panel discussion. Once again, I welcome you all for all the eminent panelists for this particular panel discussion. So I request Shreya to proceed further.
Thank you so much, sir, for your supporting words. Now, on behalf of the entire fraternity of our institute, I would like to welcome our today's honorable panelists, Mr. Prakash Kazve, sir, who is a principal special trainer at Tech Mahindra. Whereas Tech Mahindra is a USD 5.2 billion company which provides IT services and the business process outsourcing to the companies in the various vertical and horizontal markets. Mr. Jagonda Patil sir, whose specialities are of hardware design, IP, ASIC, SoC design, FPGA design, as he is designating as the Silicon Architecture Engineer in Intel at Bangalore. Mr. Murlidhar Parulekar sir, who is alumnus of our department and he is working as a project lead at Wipro in Austin, Texas, USA, as location as a part of core architects team, which is creating the framework for converting the applications from monolithic to the micro architect and also working on the app modernization efforts using the Pivotal Cloud Foundry. Mr. Sagar Patil sir, who is the founder at SSL Zen, a versatile and innovative global cross-functional leader with in-depth experience in managing and designing the world-class software solutions across a broad range of products and platforms. Now, may I request Professor Dr. Kalas Ma'am, Head of the Department CSE, to felicitate our today's guests. Over to you, Kalas Ma'am.
Thank you, Shreya. Good morning, all. Honorable Management KIT, Honorable Director Dr. Kajini sir, and speakers, guest present over here. I, on the behalf of KIT's College of Engineering, Department of Computer Science and Engineering, I welcome you all in this panel discussion event of CSI Convention 2020. So today we have with us Mr. Prakash Kajve, Principal Special Trainer, Tech Mahindra. Mr. Jagonda Patil, Silicon Architecture Engineering, Intel Bangalore. Mr. Muralidhar Parulekar, Project Lead, Wipro Limited, Texas, US. Mr. Sagar Patil, Founder, SSL Zen, Pune, for this discussion and sharing their approach towards the topic of panel discussion, future trends in IT after COVID-19. So I'm thankful for making that time besides their busy schedule and joining us. So being on head of the department, I sincerely add my words of gratefulness to all the speaker guests. So I request them to proceed towards the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. As Patil sir suggested me to facilitate this discussion, I would like to thank you, and we'll have a great discussion around here, which will give us the in-depth about how COVID has impacted us and how it is going to be an opportunity for us as well as the students who are going to join the industry soon in next couple of years. So it's the best scenario which we have today is like we have a good mixture of two streams of main Indian IT industry, which is a service-based IT industry and product-based IT industry. So Sagar and Jagonda Patil sir, who is working on some products, me and Kajve sir, who are working in service-based industry. So I would like to divide this panel discussion into two parts. One is what is the impact on service-based industry, how the opportunities are going to come up and how we can utilize those opportunities. And the second part is product-based industry, how it will come up. Hope you guys are agreeing on it. Yeah. If you have any further points, we can definitely talk about it. So moving forward, so service-based industry, India. So in India, most of the IT industry is actually a service-based industry. We have very less number of products which are world-class and people are utilizing it, like Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, and all. So we are service providers. So we can go ahead with Prakash's experience. What is your opinion about what is the impact of COVID-19 and what are the opportunities which we are going to have in service-based industry post-COVID?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you, Muralidhar. Thank you, Ajit Patil, sir, and all team of KIT, for inviting all of us and giving us an opportunity. To begin with, let me wish everybody a very happy Datta Jayanti, which is celebrated, across Maharashtra. Now, to answer your question, as you rightly said, I mean, if you really look at Indian IT industry per se, it is clearly divided predominantly into two parts, as Muralidhar rightly said. IT services industry, and predominantly majority of Indian IT is into a services rather than into a product, and it's rightly been put. And impact is there, as everybody of us aware, in both the worlds, whether it is a service industry or whether it is a product industry. In my view, the biggest impact definitely is there for especially those industries, like automobile industry for that matter, right? Hospitality industry for that matter, right? These were like, there was a good setback for these industries. Whereas industries like healthcare and all, at least in this COVID scenario, I think they have a little upper edge. Of course, they have a lot of opportunity going forward. So, in nutshell, if you honestly ask me, industry had gathered a momentum, and all of a sudden, this COVID-19 has put a break, and it has, that rhythm and momentum for all of the verticals which I just talked some time back, is kind of pulled back. Even logistics is not an exception for that matter. Airline industry for that matter, and so many industries. There was a break being put. So they were like, so you can put it in terms of the kind of revenue they were making, the kind of profits they were making, right? All of a sudden there is a break, and then, you have to, I won't say you have to restart, but to get a rhythm and get it into that condition definitely takes a time. And, every industry would take its own time. And since, we have a Wipro who's representative, and then top industries like Accenture, TCS, Infy, I mean, none of the industry is an exception in terms of the impact to the services part of it, right? Of course, healthcare and, other thing which is kind of, they were not anticipated, but it just so happened that COVID-19 has, kind of given a little boost, but boost is not to an extent what we expect. So that's my assessment on the domain side. I'll come to a very specific aspects in terms of what I think in terms of how, business models have changed, how products have changed, how services have changed, and what is expected by students. So maybe in the further discussion, I'll definitely participate.
Yeah,
industry
definitely.
point, vertical wise, that's my view.
Definitely. Definitely. So now Sagar and Jayagona sir, so this particular situation, I'm looking towards this situation as an opportunity. So for example, these small shops which we have, specifically countries like India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, or small country, developing countries, I would say. So those were not using the IT as it par, like how
technical glitch.
Hello.
Sorry. Okay. Hello. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So what I was saying is like the small shops which are there in India, or small businesses which are there in India or developing countries, those were not utilizing IT as it at its best. So now the opportunity along with the service-based industry is there with the product-based industry as well to serve. They now understand the importance of IT, having IT in with their business. So what do you think, what would be the opportunities within India instead of exporting our IT services to some other countries? What do you think that the opportunities within India's would be, and how could we capture, like how could we create the products and maybe the services to the customer within India so that it will be a cost effective solution for them, as well as it will be a good growth in IT sectors predominantly. Maybe we can go with Sagar and then we can shift to Jaygonda, sir.
Sure. Thank you so much. I'll start with my own experience, how this has affected my business, but in a positive way, of course. And then I'll add some words about, the whole product industry in India as well as globally, and what are the opportunities for the students. So, I mean, I'll try to be as specific as possible, so the students are able to relate to the current situation. So, like I said, I basically have a web security company, and we had an office in Pune where we hired people. But because of the whole COVID situation, most of my team was, they started working remotely. So one of the things that I realized was that now that my team is working remotely, and if I want to hire new people, there's no physical limitation. I mean, I do not need them to be from Pune. I mean, now I can hire anyone globally. So if you think from a student's perspective, the thing is, a lot of companies like Google, Shopify, Twitter, they have they have made a new remote work policies where they are ready to hire anyone remotely. So in case of Twitter, they have decided that even after the whole pandemic is over, they're going to be a remote first company, meaning that initially, I mean, if you wanted to work for Twitter or Shopify or Google, you had to be physically present in that particular location in Silicon Valley. But now, I mean, even if you are a graduate from India, you're a fresher, and if there are any opportunities at these companies, you'd be able to apply and get a job for that. So it also, I mean, it all depends on how do you look at the whole situation. I mean, at least for my specific industry, the web security industry, it has been a boon because a lot of people are now working from home. They're creating their own websites, and most of them need website security. So I would say, I mean, for students, it's definitely an advantage if you have that unique perspective.
Okay, that's a great insight. So, what's your opinion about the same thing, Jaygonda, sir?
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Ajit and team for setting up the discussion and inviting us. So I come from the semiconductor background. I do understand the lower level, the software details, but I'm not the application software guy. But let me see how the hardware software convergence happens, and that has impact on the in future products, right? So I'll just take a couple of minutes to talk about the verticals, the way Kajve sir talked about in the hardware industry, what's happening and what is the impact on the overall ecosystem going forward. So there are 5 verticals which I'm going to talk. One is automotive, and everywhere there is a short-term and long-term impact. So I'm not going to go every vertical in depth, but just to make sure that when I talk the respective vertical, you guys have the context in place. So one is the automotive industry. The second is the computing and storage. Third is a consumer. Fourth one is IoT and industrial. And the last is the network and communications, right? So if you look at all these verticals have the disruptive changes since last 9 months, right? Both in the short term and long term. Now, if you look at, as Sagar well said, right? Now we all started working remotely, and we as a Intel, we had a work from home policy prior to COVID also, but now they said last year only, they said next 1 year you should not come to the office irrespective of the COVID goes or it extends. So that added the pressure on the infra. When I say infra, servers, right? The cloud has come, then the security has come into place. When the security has come into place, then you need to have the trained manpower, right, to handle the security context. And the security has the multiple dimensions to it. It starts from the chip design. Every aspect we design, we look at the security. For example, we develop the Intel processors, right? You guys write all the softwares at the application level. The stacks you write is boiled down to the next level firmware, and at the end of the day is the instruction to the processor, right? So we make sure that the folks which are accessing the processor, they are not hacking the data, right? They're not hacking the data. They are not misusing the data. They're all sensitive information. It might be my day-to-day, my payments, transactions, my confidential data, it is health data. So all these things has now become the necessity, right? And coming back to the India context, I feel COVID has become as a blessing in disguise for health sector. We give a less importance, right? Because I come from the village, I see around still there is no awareness in terms of health. If I go to the government hospital, even the private hospitals, there is no handheld devices where the patient doctor can track the patient data. For example, I go to my family doctor, right? Now, if I have to get a last 20 years history, I would like to know my blood pressure data. I would like to get my pulse rate data. I would like to know the sugar, right? We have diabetic country, 30% population is diabetic. Now, where is this historical data available for somebody, doctor, when the patient is critical stage to take care, right? And the COVID, the patients who are prone to diabetes, prone to high blood pressure, we have more fatalities there. So it is kind of the situation we are in where we have to make up out of it, right? So, and there we have multiple arenas. I just talked one, and if we have more, and maybe I can talk once we have in the later part of the discussion. So I see in this consumer segment, and that is comes as our IoT segment, we have multiple opportunities in terms of I want one device which monitors my oxygen, we monitors my pulse rate, monitors my sugar levels. This all things are happening, and the sensing era, sensors to develop is a critical part of it, right? So we as a Intel, as a company, we are investing a lot on the 5G as the infrastructure, and hopefully I can give more insight as we talk.
Yeah, that's where I was coming into. So, based on my analysis, the current trends in IT are majorly into cloud computing, then the AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. 5G network establishment, though Hawaii says it will be worldwide by 2021, which has been started in 2018. And still it is costly affair. It's not, easy for common man's pocket. So extended reality is another blessing in disguise, which I would say. So maybe a company like Pokemon Go game creator, they are using extended reality. And similar to that, the other part of the industries, such as clothing industry, you can just go to the website of any of the clothing company. You can use your camera and see how a particular shirt looks on you, how the cap looks on you, and you can use the extended reality for these kind of things. So my next point of discussion would be what are the technological trends which we think that will come up. First thing. Second thing is whether we, the student, we as in I'm considering myself as a student, so whether I should start from the zero and learn everything from basics so that whatever future comes up, I'll be ready for it. And I'm asking this question specifically because of two reasons. Reason one is most of our audience are students. They are currently in college. So I was going through the syllabus on KIT's website. They have the operating system, C++, operating system, database. These are the basic things which anyone who is planning to come to industry, they should know about it. And according to me, that knowledge should be an in-depth knowledge. So to begin as an industry-ready engineer, what do you think that considering these current trends, students should start looking into, start learning into now, so that when they'll complete their graduation, they'll be future ready? Other than that, what I would say is like when I was there in final year, or Sagar was there in final year, we worked on hands-on projects in industry itself. So we should say that final year students are industry-ready students. So to make student themselves industry ready, what should they start looking into? That's the point of discussion which I want to bring to. Anyone can give a start. Maybe a good person to know about the learning is Kazve sir. So because he's a head trainer, he can give us more insight about it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Murli. Spot on. And I mean, especially our audience would be more interested to know that. First and foremost, let's be very honest and candid here that if you can't be student, it's like a Darwin's principle, you will not last long, right? So
Right.
the only principle in this world, change is the constant, change is the certainty. And if you can't, catch the bus of change, you will be a spectator. And in order to do so, constant learning is the only option. There is no other option. Second perspective is, I mean, I'm looking at 20 to 25 years back when we were students. And believe me, and some may laugh, but what we were having is 8085 microprocessor, Pascal and Fortran in those days, right? And now for 25 years, of course, I spent 10 years in COEP, and then I moved to this industry and is almost reaching to 20 years. Now, how can you survive in such an industry, which is where change is the only certainty, with just 8085 and Fortran and Pascal? You can't, right?
Yeah.
You can't. You have to always constantly learn. That's the basic principle everybody of us is. I mean, including all the panel members over here, we learn every day. We learn, we unlearn. It's like Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. You have to, apply all of three principles in your professional life. So never ever forget that. Never ever come to a conclusion that now I have done AI and that's it, and now I have done one cloud product and that's it. My life is set. No. Now I have done 5G, who knows it? You have a 6G, which would be on a way, right? So this change will continue. There's something always we see in every industry. Something is called known unknown, and there's something called unknown unknown. See, COVID-19 was unknown unknown. Nobody anticipated. Otherwise, everybody would have, taken a stance and, kind of adjusted themselves. So coming back to what I would expect us to do, you have to balance. Now, if you ask me, this change will continue. So do you leave all of other things, the basics, foundations, and science and engineering, and run behind this change? Answer is absolutely no. But at the same time, should you be acquainted with what the change is and understand some basic aspects of this change? And if possible, do certain courses. Now, there are a lot of avenues. Like I was telling, in my days, the only option was go in library and read through Brooks. And this was the early days of a textual HTML. So we used to, 56 or that kind of an age. And then, you have a textual HTML. Now you have everything available. Rather, you are puzzled in today's world as to should you choose X or should you choose Y? You don't know. Should you learn from University X or should you learn from University Y? Who's goes with it? And then there are different options available. All I'm saying is have your fundamentals very clear. Languages will come and go. Let me give an example, classical example of language. Let's look at object-oriented programming. So was C++ the first one? Answer is definitely no. There were a lot of languages before C++. But see, there is always a lot of other reasons. I don't go into that. Technical and political as well, as to why, certain things go or pick well in a particular time frame. But all I'm saying is understand the principles behind it. If you understand the paradigms behind it, like if I talk from a programming point of view, which I'm sure majority of us, I was told that they come from a comp science, or even though you come from other background, you would have some or the other way you're connected with the computer field per se. So understand the paradigm, understand object-oriented as a concept. How C++ does, how Java does, how C# does, how XY, new thing will come tomorrow. See, there will always be a applied theory of relativity and learn. That's how at least I have learned. I have learned C++ on myself. I have learned Java on myself. I have learned Python on myself. Everything I've learned on myself because, self-learning is the best. And let me tell another thing. If you can self-learn, you don't require any teacher. All you need to do is understand. I mean, you require a mentor to guide you as to which direction you should follow. Get the basic fundamentals, especially data structures, algorithms, or classical subjects like theory of computer science. Be extremely very clear on that front, right? Or even basics of, databases or operating system, or even for that matter, networking, right? Have the fundamentals clear. networks of the future will take you by long. I mean, whether you talk SDN, NFV, 5G, but if you know the best how TCP/IP works at the fundamentally, understanding another stack, I won't say it is too easy, but at the same time, you can apply a theory of relativity and understand. So all I'm saying is balance both the world. So have your fundamentals very clear. See, you can last long only if your fundamentals are clear. And believe me, the examples in the panel are in front of you. Our fundamentals were strong, are strong, and hence we are still continuing in this ever-changing industry. And at the same time, keep in tune with what's happening. Like if today Python is in demand, I should quickly understand apply a theory of relativity, understand how Python works, the specific areas, and go ahead with it. So that's how I think. And then second aspect of, especially for students, this is where I learned, just take a few seconds. Today, no more a single skill. I mean, many of the panelists would agree. I don't know what's happening, sir, in the FPGA and chip industry, but especially in the app side, it's no more a single skill. It's like a multi-skilling paradigm. So people are talking about a full stack. Like lot many advertisements, you'll find Java full stack developer or min stack, kind of developer. So it's no more like, it is expected that from a front end to back end, it's no more a developer only and tester only. You have to have DevOps in today's world, right? You need to develop, you need to understand the requirement, you need to test, so in the agile delivery of a software lifecycle, you may be playing different roles. So be acquainted with that. You don't have to be expert of everything, and it is not expected also in the time frame which is given to you. So my view is mathematics, don't ever forget. It is required. All what we forget is we learn mathematics separately and digital signal processing and image processing separately, right? We don't learn this collectively. Had it been a mathematics or like the way we do it in big data analytics and AI, probability and statistics for big data analytics, that is sensible to understand. So I learned this, I learned how to apply that gels well, but I learned Z transform or, some other transform, some other year, I go to image processing, I go to discrete quotient transform, I learned sometime in image processing, I don't know, I learned sometime back. So having subjects which are logically being put even from a syllabus standpoint, rather than saying maths 1, maths 2, maths 3, maths 4, for me, it is really doesn't make much sense. Maths used for image processing and something that is more sensible, or maths used for feedback control system, we have to figure out some mechanism. So guys, to end, balance both the world. That's the message.
Yeah, so that's where I was coming to. So thank you. You give me the start for my next point of discussion, which I gonna answer. So the technologies like GPGPU, General Purpose Graphical Processing Unit Processing, or which is called as SPP. Very well said. So that is the basic of AI and ML, according to me. So whatever the CPU and GPU processing and their discussion in between, like their communication in between, that is what is nothing but HPP, and it is the base of whatever we are doing with AI and ML. So GPU has its own brain, CPU has its own brain, but CPU has a logical ability and GPU has a less logical ability. We give those inputs to GPU. So what I wanted to say is the heterogeneous parallel programming, or GPGPU, the basic programming language which we need to run all these things is C or C++. Yet we are not able to write any program on HPP by using C# or Java. Basic is still C, C++. Even for writing a program on C# or ASP.NET, it is going to give a call to Win32 SDK framework itself. So that's the basic. My question to Jaygonda sir is, how do you think about these scenario with respect to hardware industry? People who want to come to the core programming, like Prakash was saying, like you have to learn from basics. What are those basic stuffs which we need when we are trying to write a program specifically for the semiconductors level, or for the processor level or chip level? What are the skill set which we need? What are the things which we should start looking into?
Yep. Yeah. So as Kazve sir said, right, we passed out 24 years back, right? And then that time, if you ask me, even I get 8085 processor microprocessor board to write a simple program, I say I made my day or made my month, right? So because one board, 30 people are struggling and fighting to write one program and make it work. Okay. So now the students, you are in the very fortunate enough. First of all, we are 1,000 miles away from you talking to you. That is the world we are living in. Now coming back to the question what you ask, in terms of, hey, what the software engineers or the IT engineers should know in terms of either AI or other era where hardware software co-working or convergence happens, right? So my the simple thing or simple one liner answer to all the IT or computer engineers: try to understand how, right, rather than say why, right? So, and both these words has to there. For example, I know, hey, Java programming or C++, hey, I have to write this instruction, it will work and it will do addition, multiplication, sorting. But how it does, for example, if I do that, then it breaks down to the instruction of the 32-bit instruction of the processor. So you try to understand that part of the story. So for that, what you need to do is you have to go hands on. You understand your bias, right? Bias specific architecture, that you need to understand in depth. Rather than, one thing is there we always tend to do, and these mistakes all the students do, is I studies to clear out that 40 marks. Don't get that into your mind. Okay, that will going to harm you once you pass out of this 4-year course. Then you'll say I lost that time. So take a simple program, right? Write it, break down to the next level binaries, what it happened, right? What instruction it is done, how effective is programming, and then I put a challenge here. I done this program, simple traffic light control. I'll take example, right? You write that program and see that in particular that whatever the platform, you might be having ARM processor, or you might be having Intel processor, you might be having some microcontroller, right? Then you say, can I optimize this? Hey, I can optimize this. Now my footprint of this program was initially maybe it was 20 instructions. Can I make it 10 instructions? Right? This is the beginning, right? Now what is the implications of this, right? You are now implications of the two things. By making 20 instruction program to 10 instruction, you are saving the processor execution time. By saving the process, you are saving the instruction storage. So actually you are saving the premium. The storage inside your processor is a premium, right? You are saving that processor because you are using the less space. And the last, by doing all these things, you are saving the power. So you need to understand PPA, right? Power, performance, and area, right? In terms of software, right? I am saving the power, I am increasing the performance, I am saving the area in terms of storage. That is one part of the story. Other part of the story is, as you talked about the graphics processors. See, the graphics processors are developed to handle very, very heavy data load, which normal processor can't handle in given performance scenario, right? It's not like that the processor can't handle, but it is going to take, for example, if I'm trying to ask that processor to do the work which is not intended to, because normal processor, they are more control centric, right? But the GPU are meant for handling the image processing data, or you, as you talked about, ML data or inference data. So before getting into that, students need to understand what is that image processing, what image means. If I talking here in the video streaming, means what that video streaming, what are the algorithm, H264 means what? At the high level I'm talking. This, you no need to understand all the algorithms. Once you understand that basic, for example, I did spend my 10 years in Samsung to develop the Galaxy phones, and my area was to develop the image display subsystem. From time you take the picture in your mobile camera till you display, that subsystem I need to develop. And I didn't have any background, okay, before joining, because this all, again, this was disruption came after Nokia got shut down because of their own deeds, and there is a smartphone era came, the way we are talking about the COVID era, right? Look back 15 years back, we didn't have mobile. Now the challenge came, how we are going to handle it, right? Because you have to give these chips with cost effective. So we have to develop the hardware where need to understand what is the image itself, what is a JPEG image, how you have to encode it, how you have to decode it, how the professional users will use it, how will the simple users will use it, understand their patterns, go to the basics, and then we develop the algorithms based on, as Sir Kajve sir said about COSA or this image processing, right, called DSP. With that, we designed the DCT and FDCT algorithms, which are proprietary. We filed the patents first, took that extract out of that image, process that only required image, and again reconstruct back, right? So all these things you need to understand the basics. There is no excuse for that. You will pass out the college, you will get the job, but 4 years down the line, again you will struggle because industry is changing and change is constant, as sir said. But we have to acknowledge it, act, adopt in right time to make sure that change is always constant, because otherwise it's good to hear, but we have to act in time. Okay, with that, I'll conclude. So one last message, just don't stop learning. As sir said, after 24 years, I am not stopped learning. Okay, I worked in various fields of chip design, starting from the network security. I worked on WLAN baseband development. I worked on the image processing. I worked in the PCIe interconnects. I now working on the debug space. When I say debug, how the processor goes wrong while you software guys are working. How should I know whether software is wrong or hardware is wrong? So I'm working the debug space, and now I'll be working on the next. So still I feel I'm fresh out of the college. I'm ready to go. So keep that mindset and you will be successful. Thank you.
Yep. So so I also remember my initial day. So I'm having around 14 years of experience in total. I was just counting when you were saying like you have worked on so many technologies. I started counting myself. I learned C++ on project after passing out the college. Java's multiple version, then C#, then ASP.NET, then MVC, then .NET Core, then JavaScript, then multiple frameworks of JavaScript, starting from Angular JS to Angular 9, React. So this is a continuous learning process. You have to be there in a learning process, or you will be thrown out from the industry. So that's what the fact is. I wanted to ask Sagar, what's your experience about all these basic learnings which we are talking? What do you think about all these things? Do we really need, as a product developer, you can say that, do we really need really want to learn from the basics, or for a product development, we need a different kind of mindset, which is going to help student to decide about their product, going to design that product, and final outcome will be there. So specifically, to be precise, what do you think that to be an entrepreneur, what are the skill set which students should have and which they should start looking into, both in technological things as well as in interpersonal skill?
Okay, all right, fine. So as Mr. Prakash as well as Mr. Jagonda rightly pointed out that, I mean, to be a computer engineer, you first need to clear your basics. I mean, there is no substitute for that. So once your basics are clear, the next point is, very industry specific. But the way that I have structured my career, or the way things have worked out for me is as, I'm a computer engineer, of course, but I do not program. Programming was never my programming was never my strong suit. So instead, what I did was, there's a huge gap between, a business, what a business needs, and what a developer can provide. So that is where, product managers or product people come into picture, where they are able to communicate with the business as well as the developer. So they need to understand both the languages. I mean, the language that an engineer speaks, as well as, the business basics, or the business, jargons that you usually see people using. So, I mean, that is one of the main things. So when it comes to product management, it all comes down to understanding the technology first, and what problem are people facing. Say, if I were working for, a company like Google, and if I were a product manager, my most important thing would be how are people, searching on Google? What kind of terms do they use? And how do I improve their whole user experience? So a lot of that job involves you talking to customers, have customer empathy. A lot of products, when technical people develop those products, they assume that, okay, all these technical terms my customers are going to understand, but it is nothing like that. And even in my current business, I assume a lot of things that users would understand that, but that's never the case. So you always have to think how non-technical people are going to react to what you have developed. And you need to make sure that the product that you are designing is intuitive. You should not be explaining how the product works. I will take example of Apple products. I mean, even if you hand an iPhone to a 5-year or 6-year-old, they'll be able to operate it without providing them instructions. So as a product manager, the skills that you need to learn is just get a basic understanding of the trending technologies and always look for problems. So whenever I am coming up with a new venture, it is basically based on the problems that I face. So the current startup that I am working on, it was a problem that I faced myself, and I created a solution. And that solution is now used by more than 70,000 companies worldwide. My previous venture was into cryptocurrency because I saw a problem with a particular product. I created a product for that specific problem. It took off and it was acquired by a company based in Netherlands. Before that, I started a venture that was targeted towards restaurant, people who go out. So we basically created a mobile application that provided discounts for all the meals. That venture was also successful and was acquired by TripAdvisor. So my advice to all of you is look for problems, because that is where the opportunities are. Talk to your friends, talk to different people, try and understand what problems are they facing and how can you use technology to solve that and make a profit out of it. So that's answering your first question. How do you, how do you become an entrepreneur? How do you create products? So that is the first part. And technology wise, there's so many technologies right now. What I would suggest is try and work on most of them during your college years. There are a lot of new trending technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning. So, try and get a basic knowledge of those trending technologies and see if it interests you. So say, I start reading about artificial intelligence and, it interests me. So the next thing that I'm going to do is look at all the basic frameworks like, Google's TensorFlow or Keras or OpenCV or DeepStack. These are different technologies. Now, once you learn about these technologies, try and see how can this technology solve a business problem. So a lot of these technologies can help you with object detection. That could be used in cameras. So instead of having physical security, you could use those cameras to detect if there's a person in the image, or if there's an animal, or if there's a car. You could read the car number plates. So the applications are huge, and there's a lot of innovation coming in artificial intelligence as well as machine learning. So my advice is, if you feel that okay, there's a new technology and it interests you, give it a try. Try 10 other things when you are in college, and something might just click, and something that clicks, you could make a career out of it. So yeah, that is my perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Sagar. Ajit Patel sir, this is my last set of things. So I would like to ask to all panelists so that it will be helpful for students as well as for me. I want to be blunt and honest. When I was there in the college, my plan B, if I was not got a job through the campus interview, was doing the PG. PG was never my first choice. I got a job from campus interview, and then I could never done the PG. So now people are might be thinking about giving a GRE and TOEFL, going to go for the MS because of huge competition within GATE itself, or people might be thinking about the GATE. What do you think about this perspective? So now the most of the universities in the US, they started giving their program online. You cannot, or you need not to go to US and stay there and take their graduation degree. What do you think about this particular perspective? How the education industry is going to get impacted, and what students should know about it, and what students should be prepared about it? I would like to first go from Kasbe sir, ending with then Sagar, and then Jayagunda sir.
Yeah. I think my take on it, I look at it a little differently for the very reason that, if you look at a class of, 100 plus students, then, everybody don't have an aspiration that I need to go and do GRE TOEFL, or, I need to go give GATE, or maybe, as Sagar said, I want to become. So, see, there will be very specific set of people who would be going into, I want to do, I want to be an entrepreneur. The way Sagar is in now, and then he was quite honest and candid. I liked it, saying that I don't like programming, but I was more in connecting customers' problem statement and reaching what developers. So bridging the gap. So that is also a space one can. And then while Sagar in a separate kind of show would tell in detail, but it requires a lot of other perspectives, to become a successful entrepreneur per se. So not everybody will venture that route, right? At the same time, not everybody will venture maybe a GATE route or GRE route and so on and so forth. So everybody has various options available. That is point one. My view is, every student should give a try. Either to GATE or to see what would happen worst. You might not get selected in IIT Mumbai, and you might get selected in IIIT somewhere, or NIIT, or if not, the best college of engineering anywhere in the, so I personally look at it, I want to really run with the fastest Usain Bolt. So I know I'm not going to be first, probably. But with that, my speed will at least increase. All of this, that you try to keep your aims high. And you honestly put not 100%, you put 150% effort. Don't worry about an outcome. Believe me, eventually you will learn something that will be helpful wherever you go. Whether you go take a GRE path and go to universities abroad and, have masters there and, flourish your life, or you do IITs and, do MTech, and then you get, now you heard of having crores of salary even being offered, by multinationals, even for IITians for that matter. So everybody has to choose a route. My only thing is, first be deterministic, be very objective, be very focused, and then plan all your efforts in a very focused direction towards that. And put your honest efforts without worrying about what will happen as an outcome. So that is point number one for students. As far as, virtualization is everywhere. While industries have disrupted, is education sector apart? No. That is also disrupted. So universities and all would slowly get disrupted, but I still strongly believe that our education system, will not become virtual the way we are looking at. Like, you don't require physical infrastructure, you don't require this, you don't require that, and you'll have virtual universities and you can get certificates. So that may eventually happen, maybe, who knows, when, our kids will have kids. But all in all, yes, I mean, this has given an opportunity. Otherwise, tell me in our days, Janakonda sir is there, and you also are 14 years back. It was like a dream that I hear from a Stanford professor, I hear from an IIT professor, right? It was a dream. Now everything is at fingertips. So on one side, it is an opportunity. We should explore as much as we can. And then, as Sagar was giving different options in AI or big data or IoT for that matter, various institutes, universities, and, they have floated their different, and that too with hands-on. My sincere request to the student community over here is, while your BAU is on, you should at least venture in your one of the likings. I don't say be a jack of all, and it is not required also. Yes, what you need is a digital foundation. When I say digital foundation, get to a breadth of all the technologies. Believe me, single technology will never be successful on its own. AI requires a big data. IoT requires something else, right? So it is a mixture of everything that comes together, at least two or more. Without cloud in today's world, you can't think of. So all in all, get your digital technology foundation base clear. So get, overview of each and everything, and how do they gel well, and understand few of the application, like how collection of AI, ML plus big data works in agriculture, this and that. Get that, things clear. Otherwise, I mean, depending on everybody's liking and all, as I said, it's everybody can go anywhere. And in today's world, virtually you can get everything. Nothing that you have to physically go and, do. I mean, if IT industry, 90% of the task force can work in an offline manner and still deliver what we are delivering, why can't education industry do that?
Right. Before going further, I would want to add one more question to it before asking to Sagar and Jayagunda sir. So, what do you think about interdisciplinary knowledge? And I'm asking specifically this question because non-IT departmental knowledge plus IT departmental knowledge. So, for example, if you use Facebook or Amazon or Google, it says that, or it has been proven that they read your mind. They know what you are thinking about, and based on that, they suggest you something and they force you to buy something. So this is nothing but a psychology department's addition to the digital world. So what do you think about interdisciplinary knowledge? One thing. Second thing is how students should think about this interdisciplinary interaction with the digital era. What are those things which students should think about, that this sector needs most attention of digital advancement which is available there, and they should start looking towards that as an opportunity?
So when you say interdisciplinary, I just want to understand your question. So are you saying interdisciplinary in terms of electronics guy learning computer and computer guy having a knowledge of mechanical? Are you talking at that terms, or are you talking at a vertical domain?
No. I'm talking about the other term, the first term which you said. So, for example, a mechanical guy who is learning computer for using it in robotics, or mechanical guy is learning electronics and computer to use it in robotics, or a psychology guy or computer guy learning psychology to implement AI and ML in a better way. So in that term, I was asking.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Murli. And to my knowledge, AICTE and many of the engineering colleges, and I think KIT is not an exception to it, rather it is on a forefront. In the syllabus itself, there is a recommendation in the structure of a syllabus by AICTE, and hence various colleges who are affiliated to universities as well as the one who are autonomous, they are incorporating, those aspects because they felt a need, and it is really needed. To what extent you should have an, a IT guy learn non-IT like soft skills and, other areas like robotics and all, that could be left to particular, demand in a particular area and so on and so forth, or maybe at a state level or at a level of maybe city level. I don't know. But yes, that thought process has already gone in. To my knowledge, there are concepts like open elective and things like that, which has come in the syllabus. Even I have heard singing, any passionate hobbies and all which you have. Very interestingly, even they have been also brought in a syllabus, which is the most, I would say, welcome move. And in today's syllabus, I am there on a board of studies for a couple of renowned institutes, including COEP per se. So that change is started happening. So what used to happen in foreign universities now has become a kind of new norm. Credit-based system and these kind of things have become a new norm here. So it's slowly picking up, but it's a welcome move. And every college is welcoming that. KIT, as I said, is not an exception. They have also inculcated all that in their syllabus, if I'm mistaken not, including the digital era, which you asked about.
Yeah. So student must learn something else apart from only computers, which is going to help them in.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, I mean, looking at an interest and all those, like if I'm interested in robotics, so I have an option to learn that, it'll always gel well for me, or mechatronics for that matter. So computer guy learning mechatronics, that'll help IoT. Well, if you want to make anything in the IoT world, you need to know sensors, computing, which SIRS area, and network and big data. So it's a collection of everything. So that would definitely be.
Yep. So Sagar, what's your opinion about the same?
Yeah. So I'll start with the first question. The post-graduation thing. So I mean, Prakash sir has already covered most of it. But what I want to add is that when you think of doing, the masters, one aspect is obviously the learning aspect. The other aspect is when you go to a foreign university, you will be meeting a lot of people from diverse background. You'll be able to learn a lot from them. You'll make friends with them. They'll go to different positions, and it will help you network. So one of the disadvantages of learning only online is that you wouldn't be able to form that network. So I have friends who work at LinkedIn and Twitter and Apple. So most of these people, they did their masters in the US. They had the friend circle, and they used that to their advantage. So that is like one aspect that you could think of. I mean, are you the kind of person who is outspoken and extrovert, who likes to travel, who likes to meet different people, who likes to experience different cultures? So if that calls you, so doing masters is a great option. Of course, there are a lot of things that you could learn online, but we need that social interaction. We need that network to progress in your life. So that's the first thing. Talking about interdisciplinary learning. So yeah, I mean, see, when you think of some other discipline, I mean, I'll give you my personal experience when I was interested into cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency trading. I did not have any knowledge about trading. So in that case, I had to learn that particular, I need to have that domain knowledge. And if you are a good learner, if your basics are clear, learning learning the basics of a new domain should not be that hard. So yeah, I mean, don't be the kind of person who's only good at programming, because anyone can be a good programmer. But be passionate about some certain things. Try and read what are the new up and coming technologies, not just technology, but a lot of new things which are specific to an industry. And if something excites you, you should see, because just being a programming person is not going to help you. You need to create something that will help the world. And the only way to do that is getting knowledge in a particular domain, trying and understanding what problems do they face, and then using your programming knowledge to build something for them. I mean, that is how most of the great companies have come into existence. Take example of Slack or Skype or a lot of product companies. What they did was of course, their tech stack is great and they have great experience, but they also try to understand something out of their domain to to figure out what was a problem and create a solution for that.
What do you think, Jayakant sir?
Yeah, and the first question, right, whether the post graduation is necessity, the answer is yes and no, both, right? So it's kind of cherry on the cake, right? So if, for example, as you start your engineering journey, right, as a graduation course, let's be honest, first year we don't understand anything. We are just getting into that. Hey, I'm going to become engineer. I'm in that era, that right, I achieved. When the first year mark comes, right, and then we get a little bit grounded, right, and it takes another year. So by second year we are grounded now. Okay. Okay, I have not done 11th, 12th. I've done a diploma after 10th, and I did a degree, so I have different experience. But I'm just talking about the overall the overall observations what I had in my career. So you get only maybe 2.5 years or 3 years to understand this close to maybe 20 to 30 subjects, right? Now it is the universities or the boards, they try to make sure that your syllabuses are now, universities are autonomous, make sure that they are close to industry. It was not the case when we were doing a graduation, right? That was a different story. But now I think courses are very close to your industry needs. Now what you need to understand within that 2-3 years, am I able to understand, right, to industry needs my core interest, and I was able to give sufficient time for that. If you feel that with that I'm ready with a graduation course, based on your personal or professional choices, you can go for the post graduation. Why I'm saying personal, some people might, they need immediate job, right? I need to understand, because we come from the villages, semi urban areas, and we have struggling for, my parents are struggling for bread and butter. Now if I'm trying for graduation and post graduation followed that, it might be too patient game for them. I need to understand, because of me, I don't want somebody to suffer. I can always take a pause, break myself, reorganize the things, do 2-3 years of experience, and now understand industry is going somewhere else, my skill sets are somewhere else. Either I have to slog myself, or I should go for the post graduation. So now the post graduation, again, don't think that foreign universities are best. I'll say Indian universities or Indian institutes are the best. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't think GR is a escape route. You are getting into the trap. You will work there, you will learn something which will get job in US. 5-6 years down the line, you will become again a commodity. Don't become the commodity. You become a rarity. You should say that I have unique skills which I have learned, which are going to make me stable or sustainable for next, not 10 years, maybe 5 years. That's the way we should look at it. So post graduation is again virtualization. I don't think so we will recover after COVID within a year or two with the vaccination coming in, and offline classes will start. I'm pretty sure about it. So let's think that, and that's the way our Indian education system works, right? So without that, it's very difficult to get the productive learning out of it. The coming back to the second part of the question about interdisciplinary. See, the interdisciplinary one is again what college teaches you, but just don't depend on it. Look around you, right? For example, if I give my experience, I started my career in Larsen and Toubro, okay, in engineering industry, okay, because I wanted to understand how the machine works first. Okay, I literally pull the high tension cables to install the machines. Okay, then I moved to CNC and robotic companies, right? How the CNC robotics. I work for the company called Fanuc. They build the CNC and robotics. Then I say how the robot works. Then I got curiosity to know how the boards are designed. Then I worked in board design area. Then I got to know how the chips are designed. Hey, chips are designed, like let me design a chip, how the FPGA works. So this is the way journey starts, right? So you should look interdisciplinary within your stream, IT, computer. Also you should look with across mechanical, electronics, civil, right? All these things you should look into. Reason, it gives the opportunity, as Sagar said, as you look around you in your home, you will find 10 problems to solve it. And as an engineer, you should be vigilant, right? For example, when I was in Diwali vacation, I was talking to Ajit and saying, hey, how I can give my farm product directly to the customers, right? And how I can make my farmer's life happy, right? And there were our innovation comes into picture, and there you need to understand the farmer's pain, you need to understand the blockchain, you need to understand the transportation, you need to understand the payment, you need to understand security. So these are interdisciplinary within your project, and that needs to be, you have to give up the thought that, hey, I should not just become a horse with two flaps around his eyes and he's just focusing on passing out this college and getting the campus job and my life is done. That might be too late once you react. So start reacting early in your career, and you guys have enough guidance as we are there to help you always. So be open to learning, be open to and acknowledge the problem, and make sure that there is nothing like that. There is something called interdisciplinary. You are engineers now. Engineers doesn't have any limits, right? So you should say that, yeah, I don't know the mechanical, but can I go to my mechanical friend and understand how things work? Fine. Now electrical cars are going to become the boom, right? The bikes and cars. Ask me next year, everything will be electrical. And as a Intel, we are spending heavily on the autonomous drivings. Already Mobileye, you might be knowing about Mobileye. We are already driving driverless cars in Europe and Israel. So all these things required a lot of and that's what you see. The unique example is a Tesla, right? Why they are different? Because he understands every problem: battery problem, mechanical problem, electrical drives problem, chip design problems, everything they understand. And if you understand, you solve all the problems and integrated solutions, you are not the commodity now. You are the rarity. That's what Tesla is unique in the world. So don't become a commodity. Try to understand your interest area and focus on it. With that, I'll conclude. Thank you.
Thank you. So my understanding from oral discussion is like engineering, we should learn during our 4 years of engineering about how to think. If a problem comes to you, you need to understand how should I tackle that particular problem, and that's what our engineering learning should give us. Over to you, Ajit sir.
Yeah, thank you, all the panelists. It was excellent discussion over here, and I learned so many things. First one, that everyone has to learn, unlearn and relearn. That will be the mantra. Next one, understand yourself. It's not possible that everyone can be the good programmer, as Sagar has told. That okay, that you can understand the requirements, right? You can. There is a one myth among all the computer science engineers that everyone who joins the IT industry is a good programmer. But one exception that already we have here is that programming is bread and butter for computer science engineers. But apart from that, we have to do, or we have to deal with lot many different things. Then next thing that we understood that okay, okay, there will be because of COVID, that it's an equal playing field. It's opportunity for everyone. It's an equal playing field now. Earlier, that actually the companies were visiting the campuses and they were recruiting the students, but it's not the case now. That everyone is coming with their own national qualifying test, and through that only they are recruiting the people, recruiting the students. And because of that, again, because of COVID also, it has created ground equal for everyone, right? So this is the opportunity. This is the opportunity for all the budding engineers. It is opportunity for all the institutes, because you are having the resources now through the internet. This is the first ever panel discussion that we have made, and there is no limitation now. There is no limitation of geography. That only one thing, that there is a connectivity and there is a one tool that is required, that may be a mobile or laptop, and all the resources are there with you. So thank you everyone for your participation, and will always in behind you for the betterment of students community. I request now Savant Madam for the vote of thanks.
Before going to the concluding session, I would like to ask my doubts about this discussion and all. And before that, starting with attitude of so much gratitude, I apologize really that we made you waiting in this forum due to some delays in the other activities. So I really apologize for that. And my next doubt is, if I look to the panelists, whatever are experts that are available with us today, if I talk with respect to Sagar Patil, he may get the alternatives, the best resources all over the world being a founder. People like Murlidhar will gradually increase their skill set as per the requirement and as per their achievements or opportunities or ambitions they have. Next to Kajve sir, they'll prepare, they'll train, and they'll make industry experts ready. And with respect to Jagonda sir, whatever the priorities a personal or individual have, my student will work with the same direction. But when it comes to the stability of the job, though many more opportunities will be there post-COVID, but still what about the perspective of stability with respect to the jobs? Do my student will feel frustrating due to this temporary kind of thing due to virtualization? Or if, for example, if companies are asking about work from home and they are getting expertise all over the world because people are working from home and anytime they are available for the companies. So what my student has to possess the qualities or the mindset when he will be in the forefront of a new normal post-COVID?
I would like to take that first and then I'll hand it over to you, Prakash sir. So I would answer that in a single sentence. There is always room at the top. So if you are at top in any of this skill, if your basics are clear, then there is always room for you. If you are average, I used to, my sister is, cousin sister, she is doing B from one of the renowned institutes. I used to always say her that now B is equal to BA. This seems a little harsh, but B is equal to BA, and there is no discrimination between any discipline. But what I wanted to say is there are so many engineers, and if you want to separate out yourself from others, then you have to have some specific skill. You have to have some special in you so that companies like, so I usually go for a recruitment when I go to campus interviews. I ask people what project you are working on, and when they talk about I'm working on AI and ML, then I ask the next question: what is the basic of AI and ML? Where the program is getting executed? Do you know anything about it? And if you don't know the basic about it, then there is again a chance that you will be in a back front on the race. So what I always say that there is always room on the top, and again, as Kazbe sir said, you have to be a good learner. You have to be a student always, and then only you will be succeeding in your life. Over to you, Kazbe sir.
Yeah, thanks, Murli sir. This is so let's be very honest and candid. And since many industries are here, it is foolish to say that nobody has a setback, right? We are fooling ourselves. So everybody would agree that yes, I mean, almost many industries have setback. And then see, at the end of the day, what an industry looks at. Let's go to the very basics. What any industry looks at, whether it is IT or otherwise: CapEx, OpEx, CSAT, and ESAT. 4 things. Every industry works around these 4 things, right? CapEx, which is your revenue, and hence the profit after that. OpEx, how do you optimize on your OpEx? So if you optimize on your OpEx, then only your profit will increase. If you increase your revenue, then only your profit will increase. Now, in such a situation where, it's really challenging to increase the OpEx, look for new opportunities, and all this slowly will happen. And I'm optimistic that things will come to a new normal. But let's be very honest and candid that, there is a hit to CapEx, there is a hit to OpEx, of course, with the virtualization and all. There is a little saving in the OpEx. So it is taken care. So all in all, don't be, so when will it impact to students and campus? Do you think if I was taking 100 from X institute, I will go and pick up 100? Probably not. And let's be very honest here. Let's not create a very, very rosy picture, at least for an year or two, right? Including the current year, I'm saying, or maybe a year previous, or maybe who knows it, maybe next 6 months. So I will always have, if I have to go for 100, either I will choose best campuses that I can go and choose 100 or 50. Now I have curtailed down from 100 to 50. So rather than going to XYZ, I will have a selection of campus. And this, I will go to this campuses only and I'll select. Other option I will have is, I'll go to all the campuses and I'll select the best of it. And which is where I like what Murli said. So if I have to go all over and I have to select, if I don't prove I'm different than others, then why I should be chosen? So every candidate should ask a question to themselves as to why I should be chosen. What is in it for company by choosing me? Right? So that is the way one should look at it. That's the perspective I would, of course, but I'm very, very optimistic. Slowly these things, will come back to a normal. CapEx will start booming. OpEx will start coming in control. Virtualizations will bring a lot of levers in place, and things would go in the right direction. That's what I foresee. Yeah, over to you, ma'am.
Okay, so it cleared my doubt, and obviously of students as well, because students usually will think about their careers and the stability in whatever the corporate world they have next. Now, moving towards the concluding session, I would like to give the formal vote of thanks. Honorable Management of KIT, respected Director Dr. Kajani sir, our most valuable guest speakers today, Head of the Department Dr. Kalas Madam, all faculty members and students, friends present here. It is indeed my privilege to offer gratitude expressions on this occasion. I, Mrs. Archana Sawant, Faculty of Computer Science and Engineering Department of KIT's College of Engineering, on behalf of the department and entire convention team, thank you so much to all the speakers in this forum for sharing your findings and opinions with us today. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks a lot, ma'am.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to request you all just to have one pick. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, KIT, for giving an opportunity, and keep rising.
Yep. Thanks.
All right. Bye. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.
Murli, it was a very good session.
Yes.
And
thanks.
thank you, Janagonda sir and Sagar and Ajit sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for
Thank you.
your precious time.